topic of the day. Head coach Kevin Sumlin released his depth chart a few days ago, leading up to Saturday's matchup against Utah. And while there were some not so surprising things about the depth chart, like Grant Gunnell and Gary Brightwell being named the obvious starters, of course, there were certainly a few interesting things to come out of this week's depth chart. So, what stood out to you, Ryan, in the depth chart released a couple days ago? Were there some interesting things that you noticed on the depth chart?
The first thing I noticed was the running backs. Nathan Tilford was listed as the third running back, which was just surprising. We've heard Grant Gunnell talk in the past weeks how well Michael Wiley's been playing and encouraging him, but it's just crazy because Nathan Tilford has a lot of potential, and it's just he might not get the time here in Arizona.
Yeah, it was interesting because I think this running back core was so good, and it kind of took a hit in the last couple of weeks with Bam Smith opting out and now Frank Brown being injured for the foreseeable future. I think he was out for a couple of weeks, I think they said. But the depth chart certainly thinned out for Nathan Tilford to get an opportunity. But I think what Arizona wants to do is incorporate that second running back as kind of a third down back and someone that they can throw to and use in the passing game, and that's exactly what Michael Wiley is. But I definitely agree. I think Nathan Tilford really showed a lot last year, enough so that I think he'll get carries. I think you want to look at that running back depth chart and you're like, oh, wow, Nathan Tilford's third. There's no way he's going to get a lot of touches. I think it's a little bit different in this scenario. I think, he'll get touches. I think this running back core will get rotated through. And Jalen John, I think, was listed as the fourth guy there. I think he might see a couple carries as well. So I definitely think Arizona's going to rotate through those running backs. But I think the biggest thing that jumped out to me was kind of how that safety position group and kind of how the pecking order kind of laid itself out. First of all, to see Reddy Short listed as the starter was super interesting to me because, this is his fourth year with the team, and, he's a redshirt junior, and in his first 3 seasons, he didn't play at all. He literally did not play. He had 0 career snaps in college. He has yet to take a snap as an Arizona Wildcat, just as a college football player. We haven't seen him at all on special teams either. Usually, a guy isn't necessarily a starter. He's third or fourth in the depth chart, but, he's an athletic defensive back. So you figure you can throw him in at special teams, but we didn't really see him do that either. So this dude has just been completely hiding behind the scenes on this team. And honestly, I don't know. I think that it's easy for us to kind of be super worried about a guy who hasn't taken a whole lot of snaps and hasn't taken a single college snap in his career on defense. But honestly, I think that the fact that he was listed as a starter makes me super optimistic about him, because that means that and Paul Rhodes think that he's better than the majority of the safeties on the team, right? Like media access, has been super limited this offseason. So, we haven't really been able to watch this team before in the season like we normally do. So we kind of have to take these depth charts as a way of the team saying that, these are the guys that we want in camp. These are our best guys. And I don't know. So to see him as the number one guy, it makes me really optimistic. And this isn't really a situation where it's he's starting because he's the only option there. He beat out Christian Young for that starting spot. Christian Young's listed as a backup. He started last year for Arizona. So to see Reddy Short and not only him, but Jackson Turner as well beat out Christian Young for that starting spot, it makes me really optimistic about them. And I don't think I'd be too worried just because they haven't seen time. I don't think Paul Rhodes would just throw a dude out there just for the sake of throwing him out there and getting playing time. I trust their process, and I think it was a cool decision to see both Jackson Turner listed as the starters.
Yeah, another thing that stood out to me was a position group we've been talking a lot about this offseason, and it's been the linebackers. And they're listed as they're going to start 4 linebackers, and that was a little surprising. All the guys listed, I see bright things in their future. I like all the guys, but they're just young players. Besides Anthony Pandy and Jalen Harris.
Yeah, that linebacker core is really interesting to me as well. It was definitely the most interesting thing was that there were 4 linebackers listed as starters. So, which probably means that Arizona is going to stick with its 3-4 scheme, which I don't really know how I feel about. I think right now with everyone healthy, I think a 3-4 scheme is probably the best option, especially since Arizona doesn't have a lot of edge rushers on the defensive line, like I think like if they were to run a 4-3, I don't think it would really work out well because everybody on the defensive line is just these big freaking dudes. Like I can't really see any of them playing edge rusher in a 4-3 scheme. So maybe a 3-4 is the move right now, but it definitely concerns me that if one of them gets hurt, we're going to be in a lot of trouble because I think half of the backups for the linebacker position are walk-ons. So like I don't know how I really feel about having a walk-on as our second string linebacker, but I don't know. Maybe there's a diamond in the rough at that walk-on spot. Like I said, we have had little media access this season, so who knows? We haven't really got to see the walk-ons play a whole bunch. So maybe the coaching staff is a little more optimistic about that than we are. But yeah, I think if one of those 4 linebackers get hurt, I think we're going to be in a lot of trouble. I would expect some sort of a scheme change or something like that.
Yeah, and as you just talked about, injuries can change everything. And I think if a few of those guys that we just named get hurt, that they might need to switch up the scheme because, as we know, there's just not a lot of talent there. And another player that stood out to me that where he was listed was somebody that the coaches have raved about this season is Regan Terry. He was listed as the third nose tackle on the defense, and I was just surprised about that. Because how much playing time is he going to get? I know Roy Lopez is there, and he's a talented veteran player, but I wish Terry was farther up there.
Oh yeah, we've talked about Reagan Terry a bunch of times. We love him. He's just a monster. But like I think in this situation, like the D line is just so like that's such a good position group. Like I think like it's probably the best defense like position group on Arizona's team in terms of depth and like just overall talent. So I don't think Reagan Terry needs to play that much because I think there's so many other options. But yeah, if you were to run a 4-3 scheme, he's the perfect like left end or right end, because that's what he played in high school, and he was a really good edge rusher, and now he's freaking huge. So like, we could like if an injury were to happen and we're gonna need to shuffle up this defensive scheme, I think a 4-3 could be an option. And I hate to do it, but maybe move Jalen Harris back down to the end position and have Reagan Terry on the other side. But I don't know. I like to have Jalen Harris as an outside linebacker. That was just what he was best at in his freshman season. But injuries are gonna screw everybody over, so you got to make changes everywhere. But yeah, I would like to see Reagan Terry a little bit higher on the depth chart, but I just don't think Arizona needs him to play a whole bunch just because there's so many other guys that are not only bigger than him but more experienced as well. Big 300-pound dudes that are just have been here longer than he has. So I don't know. Yeah, I would like to see him play more, but I'm not quite sure Arizona needs him to play that much this season.
Yeah, and on this defense, they lack experience. So I do think that they're going to capitalize on the little bit of experience that they have with those players. You're right. They're not going to just throw out freshmen when they don't need to. If they got the transfers with Roy Lopez, and they need to use those older guys.
Yeah, I definitely think there's a method to Paul Rhodes' madness. Like we're looking at the safety groups, and it was like, why the heck is Jackson Turner starting? Like I thought Christian Young and Reddy Short were the two guys because in Christian Young's media availability, he was talking about, yeah, I'm playing with the starters. I'm playing as the one, and Reddy Short's right next to me. So, we've been playing a lot together as the starters. So I guess in a sense we're not supposed to be so surprised to see Reddy Short there, but to see Jackson Turner there so late, because I think something happened late where they just thought Jackson Turner was the better option over Christian Young. But I like Jackson Turner. He was a 4-star prospect coming out of high school. I think he was initially a corner, but I think because of his size or speed or whatever, they moved him to safety. But I'm interested to see on how they use him. I think there were 3 starters listed at the safety position, so maybe one of them is going to be playing spur. I don't really know, but I definitely think there's a method to the madness, and I kind of like that it wasn't exactly what we expected, because that means we're in to be watching something fun, right? Like I totally expected to see Christian Young the starter, and now that he's the backup and Jackson Turner is there, I think it's a little more interesting. And it's like, oh, maybe the coaching staff thinks more highly of Jackson Turner. Maybe this is a pretty legit dude that we can have in our secondary.
Yeah, but I also think that we don't know their reasoning yet. Like Christian Young still could be interchangeable in that group, and they could just be interchangeable with all those guys and getting them all a lot of playing time. So we just don't know yet. I think over the next about 3 games in, halfway through the season, we'll see where the group stands.